I'd like to call the November 10th meeting of the Post Falls Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Will you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for being here this evening. We'll go ahead and start with roll call.
Carey.
Here.
Kimball.
Present.
Davis.
Here.
Schlotthauer.
Here.
Hampe.
Here.
Do we have any amendments to the agenda this evening?
There's none.
Any ceremonies, announcements, appointments, or presentations?
Not that I'm aware of.
All right. Commissioners, any declaration of conflict this evening?
None.
No.
Okay. Seeing none, Mr. Manley, you want to go through the consent calendar?
Yes, item A is the meeting minutes from October 13th, 2020. Item B is the Colwell-McCarthy annexation, file number ANNX4, 2020, the reasoned decision. Item C is the Amelia Apartment Special Use Permit, file number USE 3, 2020.
Hopefully everybody had an opportunity to review. If there's no questions, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the October 13th, 2020 consent calendar as presented.
I second.
Been a motion and a second. Call for vote.
Hampe.
Yes.
Schlotthauer.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Kimball.
Yes.
Carey.
Yes.
All right, citizen issues. This section is reserved for citizens wishing to address the commission on issues that are not on this evening's agenda. Comments on issues that are planned for future meetings should be held for that meeting. Do we have any citizen issues? Okay, seeing none, then we will go ahead and move into the public hearing. Public hearing A, the only public hearing, comp plan amendment, file number CPA 0002 2020. We'll go ahead and open that up. Mr. Manley to present.
Okay, good evening, Commissioners. John Manley, Planning Manager here with the City of Post Falls. So the planning staff is bringing forward to you the Comprehensive Plan Amendment, CPA 2020. And what we're looking at is to amend some language that's within the low-density residential land use designation in the comprehensive plan. I know we just recently approved the comp plan, but upon implementation of it, there was some language that I'll go into that seems like is a little inconsistent to a zoning district that we established and inconsistent with some of the public process that we discussed through that. So it's a small little proposal that you see here. Within the principal uses and character, staff is proposing the single-family residential, just the single-family part of that description. You can see just a little bit after that, 8 dwelling units per acre was denoted on that, and that was the limiting factor. Is there was a proposal for encouraging diverse housing products within the low density, and so in utilizing the density as that qualifying element to allow different types of housing. The medium density has a limit from 5 to 16 dwelling units per acre, and the high density went up to 25 dwelling units per acre. So that was those categories that you had there, and there's a purpose for that. Looking at the additional uses that is in the low density, it also goes on to say that the intent was to blend commercial and residential uses within the area. Oftentimes, it's not preferred to go straight from like a neighborhood commercial to single family. So you use some of these mixed housing product as a transition between some more of your intense uses to your lower dense type product. Once again, showing that there was an intent to mix the uses and have other ones besides just single family within the low density area. How this would be attained, I underlined it here, is with only the residential mixed. So the R1S, the R1, the SC3, those zoning districts are strictly single-family zoning districts. And so the only way you could get a commercial or something other than a single family was to exercise that residential mixed zoning district, which has some parameters which we'll go into, and a development agreement to offer some controls. What you see here is the future land use map, and that yellow area, which you see is the low density designation for the city of Post Falls. What you see in the red and pink area are more of your commercial areas, which you see down the corridor, and in these red circles are these commercial nodes, and then you have a neighborhood commercial node identified at this area in Post Falls, which is within the low dense designation. So that area, you see that neighborhood commercial was looking at that transition that I just spoke of having some different types of housing units and potentially some neighborhood commercial at that location, or at least allowing for that within this map. Other areas you see as yellow could also apply for that, such that they were consistent with the policies in the comp plan. So this is primarily what we discussed as part of the public process that led up to the adoption of this and the zoning districts, is the desire to not have a community that's just single family residential and multifamily, and to encourage other types of housing products within Post Falls to diversify that housing sector. So this led up to that residential mixed zoning district. You can see here that that zoning district, once again, it's reiterating some of what I've already stated. It's mixing the housing, encouraging varying densities within a development area. And you can see here that it was designated for residential land use patterns within the comprehensive plan. So it was entertaining that you can use this residential mix as long as it was designated accordingly in the comp plan. And specifically, it calls out the residential land use. It didn't go into low, medium, or high, because if it doesn't specify, it's inferred that it would be appropriate for all those. And it actually goes in a little bit further and actually calls it out a little bit more specifically as low, medium, high, as you see here, transit or transitional areas in the comp plan. There is some control measures with the residential mixed zone. You see here is that multifamily. You couldn't, so if you had 100 acres, only 20 of it could go towards multifamily. The other 80 would have to go to a product other than a multifamily product. It would have to be a single family product.
Okay.
And it limits the neighborhood commercial to a 10%. Here's an example of kind of the product that has stood today that you would not be able to facilitate very well, because there may or may not be single family homes. It all depends on how it was developed. But what you see on the top left could be a duplex or it could be a twin home. If it was a twin home, then it would potentially be a single family product because you'd have the lot line going down the center. But it could also be a duplex, which is a 2-unit multifamily product. So could be limiting in offering diversity. The same thing as up to the top right, you see a form of either a duplex or a twin home that could be constructed. Here's a 4-unit. Could be a 4-plex, or it could be a 4-unit townhome product. What you see on the bottom right is a 6-plex right next to a single-family home, not here in Post Falls, but it kind of delineates how you can mix some different types of uses and how they're not necessarily incompatible near each other. And so that's what that residential mixed zoning was getting at, is providing that housing flexibility to increase the options here in Post Falls. Once again, there's the future land use map. Wanted to show some product that the landings at Waterford and Coeur d'Alene that has some of that housing diversity probably could implement this with that residential mixed zoning district, rather than calling out the multifamily or the higher dense product in these areas. The residential mixed zone would allow it such that you met that diversity. I don't know the zoning for this project. Maybe it allows for it, but the residential mixed, because this is in Coeur d'Alene. You also have, this is Prairie, which is on the northern limits of this project. And this is Atlas on that, this would be the southwest corner that has a little commercial node at that intersection. So once again, this is kind of an illustration of what the residential mix could allow with that land use designation, but currently we couldn't facilitate. Coeur d'Alene Place is another example that you can kind of see how this has a little bit more multifamily and a little bit more commercial to the east of the project, but it has some single family and some mixed product within it that the residential mix could create something like this without creating all these little sub areas or having to get a comp plan amendment to medium density just to get different product, of which you may not want to get up to that 16 dwelling units that I alluded to as part of the intro. You may want to keep that 8 dwelling units as the max for the whole project. That was the whole purpose for having that 8 dwelling units in that low density, so you could get this as an outcome and still meet the housing needs. So that kind of summarizes what staff's goal is, and it's kind of to just fix that oversight, more or less. We're focused on different items. It was all good intentions. We got the zoning code aligned with it. It just that single family seems to be limiting on the original intent of the comp plan and that public process. And I'd stand for any questions you have for me on this matter.
So, okay, it kind of sounds like a PUD, what we used to call a PUD, right? Planned Unit Development. So do you have to, does it, when it's brought, when you have that zoning, or I guess when they come in to get a project approved, does it have to be, okay, here's where high density is going to be, just like a PUD would be. This is going to be commercial. This section is only for commercial. This section is for. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean,
I do, and I apologize. I meant to actually bring up where you're going with this on this slide.
Okay.
Is that they'll be with every residential mix zone. There's a development agreement.
Okay.
That'll specify their intent.
Okay.
The goal for staff with this is to provide some sort of flexibility, but then some guarantees at the same time
Okay.
through that development agreement.
Okay, so it won't be as specific, like this is the multifamily section, this is but it can all go in there, but there's still a development agreement that kind of helps to narrow down kind of what can happen.
Correct, and we
Okay,
have
okay.
in the comprehensive plan some policies that encourage, your multifamily near major transportation nodes or through your commercial nodes, or, there's justification in that comp plan to kind of guide that development agreement of where it should go within the development.
Okay.
If not, then staff would probably bring the disconnect between a proposal and the plan and what our recommendations would if there was a disconnect. Typically, though, whoever the applicant is does a good job working with staff, and you don't see those disconnects that originally
Okay.
occur.
Okay. That makes sense.
Other questions for staff? None?
Is this supposed to be a recommendation or a move to approve?
It'd be a recommendation to city council. It's an ordinance change, or it's a
Okay.
comp plan change. Not an
Okay.
ordinance, sorry, but it's a comp plan change. So yeah, you make a recommendation to council and they'll make the ultimate decision.
Okay.
And to clarify, the only thing you're doing is striking single family from that original description.
Yeah, I'll go back to that. Yep. So
That's
all
it.
we're doing is taking the single family, so all types of residential uses will still keep that cap of 8 dwelling units an acre, which they'll level that off through the subdivision. I would say that if, without multifamily, with the roads and everything, most subdivisions, single family by themselves, probably struggle to hit 4 dwelling units per acre. So the 8 gives them that little bit of wiggle room it takes to provide that diverse housing product.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, Mr. Manley, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Any discussion?
Assuming there's no public comment. None.
Do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
No.
Okay. Then there would be no need for Mr. Manley to come up to do any type of rebuttal. If we have no questions, then I guess at this point, I would entertain a motion.
Well, I'll just start a little bit of discussion.
Perfect.
Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Warren's looking at me. This just seems like a housekeeping issue. When we do something as big as a comp plan change, and as really as big as a comp plan change as we did, there's going to be some inconsistencies here and there, and so more than anything, I just applaud staff for catching it. There'll probably be a couple more here and there as we move forward, but yeah, thanks for catching it and keeping it simple. So keeping the changes simple so that it encompasses everything and doesn't overcomplicate things, and that's all I got to say.
Excellent. Any other discussion? Then now I would entertain a motion.
I'll try it. I recommend, or I move to approve, or to recommend to the City Council to approve CPA-0002-2020 Comprehensive Plan Amendment as presented by staff.
I second.
Got a motion and a second. Call for vote.
Terry,
Yes.
Kimball,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Schlauer,
Yes.
Hampi.
Yes.
All right. So moved. Brings us to item number 5 this evening, new business. Mr. Manley, any new business?
There's none.
Any administrative or staff reports?
None as well.
Okay. Commissioner comments? Anything to share?
Nothing.
Okay. If there is nothing else, then I would look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are adjourned.